Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing The Hunger Games, written by Suzanne Collins. I was a bit underwhelmed with this book. Now, I know there are so many people out there who are going to know this story back to front. I've never read the book before reading it for this video, and I've never seen the movie. So I decided to read the book once and for all. And I will read the other two books in the series as well. And then I may go and watch the movies as well. I'm not sure about that yet. But for this book, I was underwhelmed, especially because of all the hype about the book for many, many years. I found a lot of this book filler. And for a dystopian book, because this book is set in a dystopian world after all, you don't get a true sense of the world they're in this story. It's not described that well. You get a bit of description about District 12 and you get a little bit about the capital. Then you're thrown into the arena, and that's what you see for most of the book. You get a sense about what society may be like in this world, but not great detail about it, and that was a bit of a shame. So I understand that this is a young adult book. So you want action, movement, you want characters to follow. But keeping that in mind, the first third of this book, before they go to the arena, there's so much filler in that part. So I just wonder, where's the action and movement in that section? That's all about character, maybe, getting to know the main character, Katniss. But where is the action and the movement and the fast pace in that part of the story? It's not there. There's some filler as well in the arena, and that surprised me as well, because the arena is all about action and movement, but there's filler there as well. But we'll discuss that more in the next section on plot. So most people will know the plot anyway, but the main character, Katniss, volunteers to enter the Hunger Games to save her sister, her younger sister. The other competitor from District 12 is a boy called Peter, and he's about the same age as Katniss. They're not friends. They did know each other a little bit in the district, and he's the son of a baker, and he's more well off than Katniss and her family. So in this dystopian world, as a lot of you will know, people in the district struggle to survive, and people in the capital have it all. So that's one of the themes in this book, is the class divide. So people in the capital are the rich class, the elites, and people in the districts are the underclass. Very poor, struggle to survive. Some people go hungry, die of starvation, all that sort of thing goes on in the districts. And you can see that in the world, basically. You can see countries where people are starving, and you see countries where people have it all. Even in the same country, you see class divides, and that's more important now than ever, I think, because more and more countries, you see that division growing and spreading year by year. The first part of the book, before they get to the arena, is very much filler, in my opinion. And it's all about the theme of reality TV and what's it become in life. Is reality TV making us think about competition more than we used to, especially young people, winning by any means necessary? Is that what's going on in reality TV now? And I'm wondering if that's the main theme about the first part of this story. It seems to be that's what the theme is, to me anyway. There is a lot of action and movement in the arena, especially towards the start. The very first scene where they all start, from the starting bell or gong, whatever it is. And there's a choice straight away. Run to get weapons and equipment, or run into the woods, run away. That first part of the book is very gripping. Then there's a bit of slowness going on. A lot of things about Katniss hiding in trees and just waiting. I found that a little bit of filler, and I wondered if it was a bit of a cop-out from the author, because it seemed that the author used a lot of this throughout this part of the book in the arena. The main character hiding in a tree or in a cave later on in the book, and then other things going on in the story that you don't see. And you hear about during the nightly announcements about, are there any competitors who have died in the story? And I found that a bit of a cop-out on behalf of the author. To me, it was anyway. But you can't deny that what makes a lot of this book is the character Katniss and her struggles to survive, what she's going through to survive in the arena against great odds. We've got the Capitol doing things in the arena to force action, to force movement in the story. You've got other competitors forming groups, the weak against the strong. Katniss is keeping separate from a lot of it for most of the book. She forms alliances here and there with people, but with people that in the arena that we consider weak, but they have special skills as well themselves in the story. That was interesting, and that was another thing I think that is a theme in this story. The strong banding together to pick off the weak. I did find the cave scenes with Katniss and Peter to drag on too much. I understand why they were there. There's a few reasons. Getting that relationship going between Katniss and Peter. Getting the suspense going. Are people going to attack them in the cave or not? Building up to this last big scene, and the big scene in the book, in the arena, is quite gripping, very engaging, very emotive as well. So those cave scenes are there for a reason, but they drag on too much. And the author used them as another cop-out, because we had a number of competitors left before the cave scenes. Then during the cave scenes, those competitors were, dying off one by one. So we don't get to see what's going on outside the cave for those scenes. We just get Katniss's thoughts about what's going on. So it's a lot about living in Katniss's head. And in that way, we miss out on a lot of the action in this book. That last scene with mutations attacking, that was probably the best scene in the whole book. But you have to get through a lot of book to get there. We needed more of those scenes in the story. There are a few other gripping scenes as well in the arena, like the big fire scene. That was quite good and quite gripping. But it wasn't as good as the last scene in the book with the mutations. That was by far the best scene in this whole story. The ending, I didn't mind the ending of the story. I can see why it's there, and it does open up the possibility straight away of more books in the series. And that's the reason why it's there. Because there's open questions about the two characters, Katniss and Peter, at the end of this story. So the ending, I think, was done quite well. I think the beginning is a bit slow, bit of filler. That surprise at the beginning with Katniss' sister being chosen to go to the Hunger Games, and then Katniss jumping in and volunteering. That's a good twist and good use of character as well at the start of the book. And then the character growth of Katniss throughout the book, that becomes the main focus in my opinion. So this book is more about Katniss and her growth than about all the action that's going on in the arena. I think it's fair to say that this book does have a lot of comparisons with Lord of the Flies, and those comparisons have been out there for a long time. But when you read this, it's very reminiscent of that book. Those comparisons are there, and the author's probably influenced by Lord of the Flies. I would guess the author was. And that runs through my mind as I'm reading this book. Katniss is an important character. Well, she has to be because she's the leading character in this story. She's also a very engaging character. We see everything through her eyes. And of course, the main thing through her eyes we see is the difference between the rich and the poor. And then in the arena, we see the difference between the strong and the weak. Then we see her growth as well. We see her going from a naive person to a very strong person, very confident and strong person, to get through all those obstacles in the story. So it's interesting to see that growth in Katniss. Peter, the boy from District 12 that goes into the Hunger Games, he's a good character, a good support character, and the author chose him as a sweet character in the book rather than the bad boy character. But the sweet boy character is still a bit of a trope in young adult fiction, but it's used quite well in this story. The author was clever in making Peter weaker than Katniss in hunting and in all the action scenes in the story, because it makes Katniss the big attraction for the teenage girl audience. And that's important because I think that's the real reason why this book is so popular. I have to mention Rue, this part of the story, because Rue is that character that she stands out for many reasons in this book. The youngest person in the arena of that Hunger Games in this story. But somebody with a lot of skills. She's not strong, but she's clever, she's quick, and she's smart, and she's got a lot to offer in this book as well. It's a shame, I think, that she's not there for longer in the story. She's there for an important part of the story, though, an important reason. She's there to show Katniss's empathy and her willingness to help people that aren't strong, and also the teamwork in the arena in a world that encourages people to be selfish. It shows that Katniss and Rue work together, that they're different than other people, and it shows that they're more gentle than other people as well, and they do care for people. So Rue is there for an important reason in this story. After all the hype of the Hunger Games for many, many years, I bit the bullet and decided to read it once and for all. I wasn't impressed as I thought I would be, and for that I rated a 3 out of 5. I thought it'd be much stronger, given that it's so popular in our modern culture, the story and the movie. As I said, I haven't read any of the books before or seen the movies, so it's my first time to really read anything about the Hunger Games in detail and read the book as a whole. I will read the other 2 books in the series though, because it does interest me enough to read them, and then I'll go and watch the movies probably and see what they're like. If you don't want to miss out on my videos about the other 2 books in this series, check out my channel and subscribe. I also have a fantasy playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.